Okay, for my question, I was given why are biracial individuals oftentimes asked to choose between one race or the other when explaining their cultural background? So I went and I did a couple researches throughout the internet and I found various websites that gave about the same information. And most of it was that like everybody doesn't really like want to say biracial. They always want to identify themselves as either half black, half white, or there's even in cases where they say half Asian. So it just all of their answers just depend on their preference. So most of the time they identify themselves in the three categories of like biracial, multiracial, and two races. And yet some came to identify themselves as just black or white. So I went to a friend and I asked him how he felt about this subject. So I went through and I asked the same question that I was given, and he told me that it's easier to identify with one rather than both, and it's easier to be based on just one because all groups are different, and identifying with one makes it a lot easier on himself, is what he said. And then he went on to add, most people can get confused when you identify with both. He was talking about how a lot of people would ask like questions about his cultural background every time he would bring up that he was multiracial. So it just always brought up some kind of conversation that he didn't want to really talk about, rather than if someone else was like, "What race are you?" they would be like white, and he just had to go through like a whole entire explanation of what race he really is. So he just came to the conclusion that it was easier just to identify as black. And on a couple of websites, I found that if like people were to ask what race you are, knowing that they are biracial, sometimes it could be offensive because they could take it as that people don't really see them as just one. They automatically think they're like two different races, and some people can actually give them like less attention because they are two races. And a lot of people came to the conclusion when they had to like write down what race they are, that they had to usually like they would want to pick white because if they were applying for a job, it was actually more beneficial for them to say that they're white because it would be more effective for them in the long run, and that they would more likely be able to get that job. And that's the research that I found for that question, and I hope I answered it well. Thank you.